I don't think there's ever going to be another show like Static Shock. Fact is, another can never really exist. Everything the show stood for was on some level a product of its time. The show wasn't just about a teenager learning to become a hero. It discussed serious issues that affected people like gun violence and prejudice. And in regard to this episode, well, you'll see. The episode begins with Virgil at the tail end of his night. He'd go on for longer, but he's got plans to go to his friend's Hanukkah party, and he's already late. One of many parties he's actually planning to attend in the coming days.
Daisy's having an early Kwanzaa thing, Omar's doing a Ramadan feast, then there's Christmas, New Year's.
Honestly, if anyone actually celebrated it, I'm sure he'd be invited to celebrate Festivus too.
The tradition of Festivus begins with the airing of grievances. I got a lot of problems with you people.
Before he can get too comfortable, the party is interrupted by a power outage, which he discovers was caused by a giant block of ice that's encased the whole substation. After melting the ice, Virgil crosses paths with a rather odd-looking little girl. The next day, Virgil's at the mall with one of his friends when he sees the same girl again and manages to put two and two together. So here's the thing. This girl's name is Maureen, and as you've probably guessed by now, she's homeless. Before we go any further in the episode, I need to explain something really quick. To do that, we need to rewind a little bit. Static Shock was interesting due to the fact that unlike most shows where antagonists just appeared, almost every single adversary that Virgil faced off against was linked to one singular incident. See, one night, several rival gangs engaged in a fight on the docks. Virgil happened to be there for reasons that are too complicated to get into right now, but things didn't go south until the police showed up. During the police's attempt to stop them, a canister of tear gas collided with a container filled with what the show calls quantum vapor. The resulting explosion, later dubbed the Big Bang, mutated everyone in the vicinity. Problem was, a lot of the people that ended up mutated were still gang members, prompting Virgil to become static to keep the city safe. The key difference in regards to Maureen, besides being homeless, is that she has little to no actual control of her powers. Compounding onto that, she's clearly suffering the trauma of losing her mom at a very young age, leading to a degree of instability. The good news is Virgil is able to mitigate some of the damage she unintentionally wrought at the mall, but before he can confront her, she disappears. Later that same day, Virgil and his buddy Richie are helping with a food drive jointly organized by his dad's community center and the local church. While he's there, Virgil gets some information about how desperately the supplies he's helping with are needed.
The government says there are more than 7 million homeless people in this country.
Maybe 500,000 of them are kids your age or younger, out on the street, totally alone.
That night, while Virgil's getting ready for another party, Richie calls him to let him know that he's found Maureen, because she's caused a pileup on the highway with a blizzard. Rushing over, Virgil attempts to talk some sense in her, but he inadvertently causes her to panic, causing Virgil to try and chase her down. He ends up losing her, but stumbles across where she's been staying. Not being entirely sure what to do, the next day he decides to pay a visit to the church and see if the minister in charge of the aid program can tell him something about her.
Her mother died a few years ago. Her stepfather wanted nothing to do with her. Before long, she ended up on the street.
I'm not a social worker. How can I help someone like that?
You know, Virgil has a point. He can most certainly fight guys with fire coming out of their hands, but there isn't exactly a lot he can do to help someone dealing with a lack of home and mental health problems. But maybe there is something he can do to help her.
Try to remember this. She's not some faceless category, the homeless. She's a person like you and me, a person in pain.
So, later that night at a tree lighting ceremony, don't ask, it was Richie's idea, Maureen shows up looking for her photo. Unfortunately, she's not exactly in a talking mood, forcing Virgil to fight her. In the midst of the fight, Virgil manages to calm her down by appealing to her feelings of loneliness.
I know what you've gone through.
How could you know?
Because I lost my mom too.
He helped Maureen by giving her the one thing she really needed, to know that someone cared about her. Afterwards, Virgil and Maureen are at the church getting her some more help.
Thank you.
Will she be all right?
I don't know. But as we say in my business, you have to have faith.
This show was broadcast in the 2000s, and 2 decades later the homeless crisis has improved, but there's still a long way to go.
You, get something in your eye?
No. I'm just starting to see what the holidays are really about.
Merry Christmas, V.
Back at you, bro.